back of the council chambers above the clock. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Cottle?
Here.
Councilmember Graham?
Here.
Councilmember Johnson is absent and excused unless there's objection from the body. Councilmember Crafton?
Here.
Councilmember Velock?
Here.
Councilmember Rubio isn't here currently, but I just expect her within about the next 15 minutes, if not earlier. You do have a quorum, Madam Mayor.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. And Ms. Cottle, would you lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The first item of business is approval of the agenda. Are there changes to the agenda? Hearing none, the agenda is approved as presented. We are now at public participation. Persons to be heard. It's a time for members of the public to share their views with the council. This is not a question and answer period or a time for dialogue. Speakers may be referred to administration, or issues raised may be taken under advisement by the council or administration. Scott Lapine.
You don't have a clock up there, or should I use mine?
I do.
Oh, but I can't see it, can I?
No, you can, you'll see it.
Oh,
Scott.
there, awesome, thank you.
Right, please begin your testimony by stating your first and last name, and comments are limited to 3 minutes.
Yes, ma'am. My name is Scott Lapine. I'm here to speak about the sewage treatment plant. I am by no means an expert. First, let me say thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council, staff, for your time and attention. I am certainly no expert in sewage treatment. In fact, I am an engineer, but went to the same school as your Public Works Director, Mr. Shaw. I've lived on the bluff southwest of the plant for the last 30 years. Lots of the time before, when it was privately owned, I spent days, summertime, winter, running my dogs and doing my dog training down in that area, so I know it fairly well. The city of Wasilla is pursuing a project to discharge 500,000 gallons of effluent a day into the swamp adjacent to the plant. And that's because the current system exceeds nitrate and ammonia discharge standards. And the thought is that the vegetation will digest some of those components and bring it to a level that meets ADEC or EPA discharge requirements. A little factoid. The Engineering Working Group in Washington, D.C., using public records from 2017, found 4,000 community water systems across 20 states supplying 21 million people's drinking water to be contaminated with nitrates. Now, the study goes on and says that a large part of that contribution is from agriculture. We know fertilizer is nitrates, and it's discharged on the surface. Those nitrates migrated down through the surface and into the drinking water of 21 million people's homes. The bluff is about 100 feet tall, and my well hit water at 85 feet. I stopped drilling at 189. So you can draw the picture in your head of what the water looks like in that area. The pilot project drilled several wells from the surface of the swamp through to our drinking water aquifer for testing purposes. Like earthquakes, it's not if, but when nitrates will reach our drinking water. Down we go now. The consultant, let's see, jump right ahead. There's been numerous attempts by the borough to address sewage problems in our community. Local governments, Palmer, Wasilla, the can has continuously been kicked down the road. The latest effort got as far as an RFP to build a plant at the landfill. That project died as well. The city of Wasilla has spent millions on a library and a public police station and is considering the construction of a new city hall, all valuable, important infrastructure for any community. Equally as important is the treatment of septage and sewage. I know the plant has to discharge effluent. Stuff goes in, stuff's got to come out. I'm asking you to make it cleaner before you discharge it onto the surface of the swamps. It won't be easy, it won't be cheap, The risk is the cost of not doing it and contaminating our drinking water and adding us to those statistics that I quoted earlier. Thanks for your time and attention.
Okay, thank you, sir. Seeing no one else, I will close persons to be heard and move it back to unfinished business. Madam Clerk, please read the IM by title.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's IM number 2417, discussion on the goals and initiatives for FY25 in Committee of the Whole. And this discussion is continued from December 17th. And may I, Madam Mayor, just, Council, we did hand out a copy. You'll see a copy here. It wasn't in your packet. This is goals 1 and 2, incorporated the changes you made at the last meeting, so they read exactly as you made them. And so we're picking up on goal 3. You're either welcome to use this or the one in your packet, but that's, so you have a clean copy for 1 and 2. Thank you.
Is there a motion to enter the Committee of the Whole?
Madam Mayor, I move we enter committee of the whole for the purpose of discussing goals and initiatives for FY26. Committee of the whole would include the council, city staff, and the attorney if she is online.
Is there a second?
Madam Mayor, I'll second the motion.
It's been moved by Councilmember Graham and seconded by Councilmember Crafton to enter Committee of the Whole. Is there objection to the motion? Hearing none, we are now in Committee of the Whole. The time is 6:06 p.m. So we will start with goal number 3. Madam Clerk, would you read, please?
You bet, Madam Mayor. Get my glasses. Goal 3 is quality of life. Continue to, I'm sorry, that's goal 1. Bear with me. Goal 3 is fiscal sustainability, support fiscal policies with focus on fiscal responsibility to foster a viable community. And we start off with number 1, develop, well, do you guys want to massage, I guess, just the wording in goal 3?
Okay. Read number 1, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. That is develop a comprehensive cost user fee analysis for current project plans to ensure effective allocation of resources and accountability.
Any discussion?
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Graham?
if I could get someone in the staff to comment on user fee analysis. Are we talking about what it costs to provide a service versus what we bring in from permits? What exactly might that include?
Eric, would you come to the podium, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Also in your packet is last year's document, and so this is a direct carryover for number 17. So this is definitely a candidate for massaging. What was your specific question? You asked about
The question was, cost and user fee analysis. We haven't
Yeah.
had any such analysis during the last year, even though it was one of our goals. But I don't know if that means we didn't develop and look at that, or we just didn't have, or we were only looking at new programs. This talks about, allocation of resources and availability. So I don't know, are we talking about new stuff only, or are we talking about existing programs? How are we
That's an excellent question.
dealing with this?
A project was begun when Joan Miller was still finance director about doing several things with user fees, looking at their identifying if they were still relevant, if there needed to be changes either up or down with user fees, but then also having a cohesive location for all those fees. And one of the ideas was, if the Menard, if we use public space fees, if the Menard has a public space you can rent, how much are they charging? How does that compare to the library, other places? Having a cohesive location to set them side by side. How much does a spot at the park cost? That sort of thing. I know that Cassie has picked that up, but it hasn't made it into a document that's come in front of the council. So I suppose if this remains as a goal and initiative for the council, it would, we'd be looking to see if the council feels anything's out of touch with where you want to see it, or if you're getting feedback from the community that it's either confusing or it's not in line with kind of expectations for costs. I think that in my own review of this, I wonder if it should speak more to balancing user fees with the cost recovery, if you will. Like, does the council support having, I'll give you another example. Right now, many of the covered shelters at the parks are free to rent, but it's a fair amount of paperwork that we do in Public Works to secure those, and they don't have really any, they get a thing that says that it's secured for them, but they don't have use of, what am I trying to say? They still have to share it with other public users. And so do we want to continue to not charge? Should there be a fee associated with it, as we try to make it available for the whole public, but is there value in having some cost recovery for that? So I guess that's kind of where this has been going for the last few years. Is there an expectation by the council that there are some cost recoveries for uses around the city?
If I could comment, you can go ahead and stay there if you like. The Airport Advisory Commission has been doing just this, when it comes to, tie downs for transients, tie downs with electricity and so on and so forth. So I would like to keep this here, but I would like to kind of have the Airport Advisory Commission and the airport kind of take the lead on that and see what that process is that they work through before we develop a process, for Parks and Rec, before we develop a process for, somebody, requesting street maintenance or something like that. I'd hate to see us go in 5 different directions. So I'm in favor of keeping it, but on a personal level, I'd like to see us, try it and then refine the process as opposed to come up with 5 different processes and try and argue our way through it. So, thank you.
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Crafton?
Thank you, Mayor. I like what Mr. Graham's saying. I feel like if we are gonna leave it, it almost sounds like either we have to add one or change this. It sounds like what you're asking for is to create a process by which we do this, is the way I'm understanding it. Which is not necessarily what this speaks to, like what you're saying. So it almost sounds like what we need is a process to analyze user fees based on how the Airport Advisory Commission, I believe it is, or committee is the one doing it right now. So because what this saying does not speak that to me.
May I reply?
Yes.
So, Mr. Crafton, you are correct, but I think for us to develop a goal for this coming fiscal year to develop that process, in my eyes, is too soon. The long-term goal, 2 or 3 years down the road, or maybe even this year, but I don't think we want to kind of hamstring the staff's time by saying, hey, by the end of the year, we want a process. We would like to be, for the staff to develop a process based on what happens at the Airport Advisory Commission for one, but I don't, personally, I don't know that that's going to be a high enough priority for them to divert resources to getting that done at the end of the year as opposed to in their usual process of deliberation. But thank you.
I'd like to note that Councilmember Rubio arrived at 6:14.
One comment I'd like to make is, if you compare, or if you put side by side 1 and 2 in this section, it does talk about review of user fees. So it may be that, and if you look at 3 as well, it may be that if there's something missing in those three that you want to codify as a goal, this might be the spot where you could change the wording a little bit or something. I think, and like I mentioned, what we wanted to do, it just as staff looks at fees as a way to, offset some of the costs. And so it may be that policy is that a fee will never offset 100% of the cost, because some will be very smooth and some process take a little bit more time, maybe work with the public, and so the actual sunk cost for processing a permit or something like that, it just isn't recouped. But on average, you get most of your costs covered in that. It may be, the policy that there's a fee collected that offsets a percentage of it, and it's never the intention to have it generate capital, just to offset a little bit of that. And that's, I think that's some dialogue that'd be great to hear from the council on, kind of where the will is for cost recovery. And then there's others where maybe the fee is just associated with the attention that it brings. So back to like park users, maybe the fee for a pavilion is so that the user leaves it in a good state because they have some monetary skin in the game, if you will. Or maybe it's so that we can make sure that it's not being overly utilized by one group and then not allowing other users to have it, because an entity picks it up for a whole summer and it prevents kind of turnover for the public use. I think we look at it as different means to try to balance use or balance costs, or I don't think, but it could be from the council too, that the directive is that there's support being left on the table. Maybe something just needs to cost a little bit more because of its impact to operations. So I think this is that area for that goal where it would be good to see if there's any direction from the council on that.
Mr. Crafton?
Madam Mayor, thank you. I'm not really sure how to put this into the words here, because my thought on this is, obviously these have not been on here this isn't the first time they've been here. How do we prevent us from continuing to kick the can down the road on something like this? Because that's my concern here is, kind of like what Mr. Graham said, we don't want to time constraint people because sometimes it's not able to be done right now. You only have a limited number of resources to get a certain amount of projects done. And my concern at this point is, we've already had it on here one time. Are we going to get it done this year? It's my question. 2026 at least. That's just my thoughts on it.
Through the mayor, I was gonna see if maybe Finance Director Olin wanted to talk about the status of her project, and maybe, as Mr. Johnson alluded to in the first meeting, having some reasonable timelines is helpful for everyone to manage priorities and discuss that. So I wonder if I can give her the hot seat and she can talk about what she sees feasible this year and moving forward.
Good evening, everyone. Through the mayor, Mr. Crafton. I have been updated in regards to this. It was kind of passed on to me from the prior former finance director, Joan Miller, and she had assigned this out to our sales tax auditor, and she had began this process. As we have found out, there are quite a few fees within the city, and they are all throughout our code in different sections, different areas, or through different policies and procedures. Based upon the information that I've received from all of them, the workload of that is a tremendous lift for the finance department. And it will take some collaboration and some a different process or procedure that we will have to deal with in other departments just to figure out how to do cost recovery and things of those natures. With the current upcoming current workload that will be on the finance department with the Tyler implementation, I would say it would be a couple years before we can actually get to something of this nature. And I believe also that with Tyler, this project actually could be easier to get done because it would have the financial reports that we're looking for and the mechanisms to be actually break it out and look at things through. I know that I was just talking to planner Cindy, and she was even saying the same thing because of Title 16 and the changes that are being made there. She would want to wait till after that those are all completed and done, and then also waiting for Tyler to also be done also in regards to that. So.
Thank you.
Mr. Gray?
Thank you. So, Mr. Crafton, and Finance Director Owen, would it be better if we worded this, if we were to delete the word, current, analysis for current project plans, to change that to projected or proposed project plans, so that when someone brings forward a plan, they bring forward some sort of fiscal accountability for that plan? If there is going to be a fee, what would that fee be? What would it be used to offset? Would that be more amenable to what you were saying there, Mr. Crafton?
I think it works, yeah.
So would I need to move to make that change, or?
No.
Oh, Shirley did? Oh, proposed.
Is that what you're after, Mr. Gray?
I think so, and plus I think it deals with Mr. Crafton's concern about kicking the can down the road if we, we're still kicking the can down the road on plans we have. At least this is saying when we bring something forward, we have an idea what it is, so.
Well, a lot of things, it'll take a couple of years to implement the ERP. But when it's implemented, then a lot of things like this will be a lot easier on everybody to give the reports and stuff that you're after.
I just wanted to add that same thing, Mayor. It sounds like what our finance director is saying is this new ERP system is gonna answer a lot of these questions a lot more simply for us. So thank you. That explanation helps. Again, like Mr. Graham said, are we kicking the can down the road? Yes, but we're not kicking it so far down the road that we can't see it. We're saying, hey, we just need a little bit more time to get this done, which
And-
makes me feel better.
Madam Mayor, I also think, Mr. Crafton, it also is, if we do a cost analysis of the current, cost recovery is gonna be drastically different than with the new system. So I would hate to put in all this effort to do the current cost recovery and the time and the energy that it takes to process a land use permit versus what it will take to do a land use permit in the new system. Because they're gonna be drastically different in regards to just the electronic system setup of that. So I would say yes, the proposed project plans would be a better fit for us, and we can continue that beginning in FY '26.
Jamie?
Through the chair to the council, I just wanted to, and Finance Director Olin's comfortable with it, but remember what you're doing is you're really establishing goals for '26, so I think if it's not feasible or it doesn't really match, I don't think you kick the count, because this is for '26. So, you're kind of setting up for failure. If the administration feels like I'm hearing maybe it's not something that is going to be done this year. So maybe when Tyler's implemented, maybe it's anyway, just food for thought. But what we're doing here, unless I'm incorrect, is we're establishing goals and initiatives to be completed to help budget building in '26.
Right.
That's all.
Mr. Gray?
And I do think that's what the wording, the changes there, changing it from current project plans, which would be everything that we've got going on now, to proposed, just being new projects. So, and then, of course, once the ERP is in place, there may be some adjustments there, but at least we have a starting point.
Madam Mayor,
Oh, I'm sorry, Kathy.
through the mayor to the finance director. Cassie, then, you know, I agree with changing from current to proposed in number 1, but in number 2, with doing comprehensive review of user fees, is that something also that needs to wait until the ERP is complete? Or is that something that you have maybe already been working on and it will still get done, or is that something that needs to be pushed out farther also?
Through the mayor, we, Councilmember Cottle, we have began the review of the user fees, and certain departments do their own. So for instance, the Menard Center, Director Bell does his every single year and actually brings it, I believe, brings it forward to the council to get approval on that. So certain departments do their own analysis on their rentals or anything of that nature. Yeah, it's kind of an all or nothing, so we wouldn't be able to complete that in FY26 for every single department. We can get some done, but we would not be able to get every single department looked at. There are hundreds of user fees that we have currently in our code.
Okay, well, I appreciate you, you know, being honest about that. You just don't think it's gonna be able to be done. And I would rather you do that than say, oh yeah, we can, when you have hesitations about it, so thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
Madam Mayor,
Ms. Rubio?
so with that implement of the ERP, is it even feasible for FY26? Or should these goals be, I mean, a goal is tangible. And from what I'm hearing, 1 and 2, 3 if you want to keep it, is not tangible for FY26. So why do we have them on there?
Very good question. I think they were just carryover from prior years that we had, from 25 and 26 when it was built, where Director Miller went at that time. I can tell you that number 3 we have been working on. We actually have bought, the Public Works Department had bought some, was it Waterford, I think it is? Yeah, Waterworth. It's, and we have been working on our utility rate structure fees. That one is in the process and in the works, and I would say that one actually would be coming up due in 26 because we are actually in the process of utilizing that one to have reserves for that one. And the airport is currently working on the other, and then the Menard Center, like they're done every single year. It would be just the general fund operations where we have really struggled to get those all into compliance and to utilize and do cost recovery and actually do a thorough review on all of them.
Madam Mayor, so I feel like we should keep goal 3 if that's tangible. But 1 and 2, I don't think we need on there.
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Crafton?
Thank you, Mayor. Sorry, we're jumping around here a little bit. I feel like what we've put in here for 1, it makes sense for us for now. Number 2, I think really the part of it that actually would need to be removed is the comprehensive review of user fees. And I feel like user fees, yes, contractual agreements could stay in there because exploring revenue diversification programs is something that we do want to look at, considering that how much of our revenue comes from just sales tax. And I know it's been a conversation with our deputy administrator on trying to find other ways to make sure we have other sources of revenue. So I feel like we're exploring it is something that's possible, but the aspect of a comprehensive review of user fees is essentially out of the question because of the new ERP system. Contractual agreements, I can understand leaving that in there because if we have any contracts coming up, that's when we're really gonna look at them. I mean, you're really not gonna take a bunch of time if a contract's not coming due. That's really what, at least that's the way I think of that. But I feel like my thought on it would be just removing, so if we're it would be to include a comprehensive review of, actually, you could probably remove all of that, and it would just read explore revenue diversification programs, including contractual agreements to explore additional revenue streams. So basically what's highlighted would get removed is what I'm thinking. I don't know what the rest of the council would think on that one.
Is she fixing it? No. Yeah, just so we can see it. Contractual agreements, so explore, so contractual agreements needs out of there too, right? Just
No, I was
just
saying
agreements.
leave that one.
And to include,
To explore, we wanna explore.
Explore revenue diversification programs to include contractual agreements. Oh wait, that would be the end, you're right. Now I see what you're saying. So everything after the word agreements, so contractual agreements, remove the rest of that. There we go, is that what you're talking about, Councilmember Rubio?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, grammar is getting the best of me.
It works.
Are you gonna keep number one?
I'd like to speak to that.
Okay.
So on number one, based on what our finance director is telling us, I think the issue there is the comprehensive thing. We don't currently have a way to do a comprehensive analysis. And we have decided upon implementing an ERP, which over time is going to give us the data points that we need where we can do comprehensive sort of things. So once again, here I would propose that we just delete the word comprehensive on number one there, and sentence number one. Just delete the word comprehensive. So we leave the develop cost and user fee analysis for proposed projects. So, if we're going to bring something forward, we should have some sort of idea of what the cost is and what revenue is going to be generated, if any, from that project. Excuse me.
Which is something we already do through the fiscal note on all of our appropriations or ordinances. Those are currently done through our
And I
fiscal
really don't
notes.
even know if it needs to be a goal as much as it needs to be a policy, but if we set it as a goal here, then that makes sure that we'll see it.
I think what it does is it says, this is important to, oh, sorry, go on.
Yeah, I think that that's already a process that we do. Why is it a goal? It's already a policy.
So am I hearing strike number one?
Madam Mayor?
Mr. Crafton?
My thought with this is, it sounds like we don't necessarily have a process right now. We do something like this, but the way I'm understanding it from kind of the back and forth here is, this was obviously in here because it was something that was needed. And so yes, might it be a policy down the road, but sometimes you have a goal up front, and then once you've realized you've done this enough times over and over, you stop calling it a goal because it's become a policy at that point.
Madam Mayor, may I?
Yes.
Through the chair to the council, the history on number one really, I agree with Eric. What number one was it was taking all of our user fees, looking at them across the board, putting them into one packet. Every other municipality does this, and it's adopted by council. So it's several pages long. You want to come in, what are your user fees at the city? It's one little document we pull out, multiple pages, and you see it at the borough. You see the borough adopt it, you see Palmer adopt it. That's really what that was. And it was looking at, whether it was worded that way or not, it was looking at, is the library competing, when you rent a room at the library, what's that fee compared to renting a room at the museum or the little building compared to the Menard Center, and how does that all play in? So that's just a history on number one. Can certainly change, but that was the intent on number one.
So Madam Clerk, is what you're saying, we just need to change the way this is presented in code into some sort of spreadsheet, or?
No, it was a project, if you will, to gather, to not only look in code, but to look at, for instance, we talked about how Scott brings his fees forward. Instead of them being kind of piecemealed across departments, it would be one comprehensive document that was brought forward to council. every year, and we'd adopt it by resolution or amend it. And then you and the public would see what the city fees were across the board. Rental rooms, the whole, copies. I'm just trying to think of easy ones. How much, a public records request, what is it per page for your copy? If that makes any sense. So I don't know that it was exactly worded correctly if we look at the wording in prior years, but that was the intent, and that was the project Eric was talking about, and he was spot on, and then Cassie talked about it. And she just said it was a project a worthy project, but realistically, probably not gonna be able to be completed this year.
We could, sorry, Madam Mayor, we could definitely put together the spreadsheet and do that kind of part of it. We couldn't do the analysis behind that all. We couldn't do the comparability, and we couldn't do any of that. We could definitely bring them all forward and do all of that part of it, but there's no way we could do the comprehensive analysis and the cost part of it and everything that was be entailing to get it set to compare them all. But, I mean, we can always get it together and have it formatted like the, all the different fees that we do have, but.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
after, this discussion back and forth, I think I have to agree with Councilmember Rubio. I think we ought to just strike number 1.
Madam Mayor, and I might be going for that too. Is there maybe a chance that this might get lost? It's kind of nice to have a goal that is a goal. Maybe we can't do it exactly yet the way we're hoping, but at least if we have what we can do on there now, that it doesn't get lost. Because it can get deleted and we don't see it again.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
so just remember what a goal is, guys. It's tangible. If we're just putting it up there to put it up there, that's not a goal, right? It's not gonna get lost. Set it to the side for FY 2027 and we'll put it back on there when it is something that we can implement and run the full analysis on it.
Through the chair, maybe to the council, you could say something like gather all, Ms. Allman, help me wordsmith, gather all user fees to create a document for future analysis. So we at least gather them this year, get them into one spot, and then we don't drop it, and then maybe next year we say, yeah, we've completed that, we've gathered them all, because they're in numerous places, and then next year when we refine it, we pull off the gather and we leave the analysis. I don't know.
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Crafton?
Thank you, Mayor. I will have to agree with Ms. Velock there. That's how I was feeling. My honest fear was this gets lost. In all honesty, I probably won't remember this conversation next year when we're doing this in its entirety, at least. And so that's what I'm looking at here is I don't want, because I think it's a really great goal. I really do think it's something that we want to really do. And after hearing what the clerks talked about, I like the idea of just saying, hey, this is the portion of the project we can do this year. Because again, the longer this conversation's going on, the more it sounds like this really shouldn't be here because it's not something we can do this year, 2026. And so I'd like to almost see that spreadsheet say like, hey, let's at least get all of our user fees in one place so we have an easily accessible document. And then that way in 2027, we can actually go in and do this exact thing.
Mr. Gray?
Thank you. So I would be in favor of keeping goal number 1 in its current, as it's currently posted up there, which is different than the print, but keeping what's up there because it says that we are gonna be doing this for every project that we bring forward. And then as the ERP gets implemented and we get enough data to be able to do a comprehensive analysis, we have already laid the groundwork for some of these things to be done. So when we start to do the comprehensive analysis, we're not starting from ground zero. We're building on top of a kind of limited foundation that's already there. So I'm in favor of keeping number 1.
Okay, I need a decision.
Madam Mayor, it's up to me. It's going off of there, guys. It's not changeable. We can put it back on. I won't forget it. I won't forget it. Put an asterisk next to it. We'll get it next year.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I'm still kind of along the lines with Councilmember Rubio on this, but I would like to see us change it where we're looking more at this year, more along the lines of what the clerk had stated about bringing all of our user fees onto one document this year. That everything is in one place so that everybody knows what everything is for every kind of permanent rent, whatever you do, everything is in one document. And then next year us doing the comprehensive feasibility.
Can I ask a procedural question on that? Based upon other cities, don't they usually bring that document forward when they bring the ordinance for the budget forward on that? Is that normal with that?
Through
Or
the
can we
chair.
bring it later?
Director only, I've seen it brought later after the budget's adopted, because you program in those fees on your revenues, correct? So it comes in after the budget's adopted, if there were any revisions. That's my understanding.
Because we would develop it off of some projected.
So maybe.
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Crafton?
I'm with Ms. Cottle on this one. I think her and I are on the same page. We're not necessarily getting rid of it. We're just changing it to create I would like to say a stepping stone to get to this.
Madam Mayor, I also am for that, kind of splitting it. It's still a goal, but it's just partial of this goal. But I think it is important to have our ducks in a row before we're ready to then implement the comprehensive.
Mr. Graham?
I like what Ms. Cottle has to say there, but I think what you're talking about should actually be a separate goal number. We got 1, 2, 3, a separate goal number 4, which would be to collect the data and have that data available. I don't see it being related to the goal number 1, whether it's kept or not, but I see it as being a separate, attainable, and in Ms. Rubio's words, a tangible goal. So I would definitely support that, but I think it would be a different goal than what we have up there.
Madam Mayor, thank you. Cassie, tell me if I understood you right, that for any proposed projects now that you're already doing an analysis?
Correct.
Okay, so then,
So if a project is brought forward to me and it's, for whatever reason, we do a cost analysis behind it, and then we figure out if whether or not it is a valid user fee that needs to be, given to basically to a constituent if they need to pay for that service or that project that is gonna be developed.
Okay, so it's already your procedure to do that for proposed, okay. Then I would suggest that we delete number 1 because it's already a procedure, and that we insert gathering all of our user fees in one document for the public use.
Develop a user fee document?
Madam Mayor, to Cassie. So Cassie, this goal says develop a cost and user fee analysis. You're saying we don't need to develop one, we already have one?
Through the mayor, Councilmember Milok, I currently have a form, a spreadsheet that I work with on the directors if they should happen to have a proposed project that they wish to bring forward to the council for either appropriating authority or different, projects that we have within the different departments. And so once that is developed and we figure out whether or not it is a cost that is just a cost of operating the city, or it's a cost that it is a user must pay for a service, then that decision is made whether or not it needs to be added to the user fees, and then to help cover the cost recovery behind it. And some of them are just our normal operating costs that we have. It's a project that's been running, you know, for instance, the bulk water station would be a good one that we have. It came in, it runs, we figure out how many gallons and how much, if it's gonna cost for the service of that.
Okay, so how this was rewritten, we're already doing that, it sounds like. We don't need to develop a cost and user fee analysis for future projects or proposed project, because we do that already.
Correct, I already do that.
Okay. Sounds-
We just don't have anything for any of the prior current, why we charge $25 for a business license, and if that is actually covering our costs for the process of that business license, I can't tell you if that analysis has been done.
And we don't have the means to do that yet.
Correct.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, along those lines, it's the ERP that's gonna do that for us by a click of a button. So that would be in FY 2027, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Crafton?
thank you. Just to add on to what Ms. Rubio was saying there. So essentially, the goal of the ERP system is, yes, I think we'd need to word it slightly different where it's saying, hey, we actually need to go through all of these at that point. But again, that's a 2027 or even potentially even further, because it really depends on when the ERP system is completely put in place. But until then, we can't go necessarily do that. We've got number 2. I mean, I'm for at this point deleting number 1. I think the conversation has come to that. So, I mean, I know we can't make motions at this point, so leave it at that.
Okay, is it unanimous to delete number 1? Okay, delete number 1. Everybody good with 1, 2, 3?
Madam Mayor, can I ask a question about number 3? It has review utility rate structure and payments in lieu of assessment fees to ensure water and sewer. What does that actually mean?
Currently how we are operating it is the utility rate fee structure. What we're currently operating with the water, Waterworth is we put in all of our expenses that we currently have that happen either in the water or the sewer fund. Based upon the user fees of whether or not we are covering the actual, you know, personnel that is doing the septic pumping, the running the sewer treatment plant, whether or not, you know, all of our fleet maintenance, all of our fleet vehicles, things of that nature. And then also the capability of what we're really looking for and what we are striving to get to at the end of this is whether or not the sewer and water funds can actually support their own capital project and infrastructure at the end of it. And so that we have a user rate fees, and that the increases are being, you know, to help offset some of those costs that we have to have in order to have infrastructure. The new water towers or the new booster stations or lift stations or the new sewer lagoons or whatever parts that we have, due to the fact that we are having aging infrastructure and that we are growing, those are the things that we need to pay for. Otherwise, it's gonna continue to be a general fund transfer that will have to offset those costs for the infrastructure part of that.
Okay, thank you. So it does say in lieu of assessment fees.
So those, so the payments in lieu of assessment fees are, when you might have to help me on this one, Eric. So, they are when someone wants to actually hook up into our system, into the water system majority of the time and the sewer system. And basically we have a current, basically when they bring in a plat and they do up, we have a certain formula of certain linear feet that connects to the main lines basically, and that is the cost that we run, and that person actually has to pay that amount of money in order to get hooked up into our main water system, in order to have water to their house.
Okay, sorry to beat this to death. Okay, so what is the assessment fee and who typically pays that? The person who's getting service?
The person who's usually building the land, the plat, the person who's owning the property.
Oh, okay, so there's a difference between the assessment fee to, they're probably getting service, to payments after they already have the service?
So the utility rate structure is when you have service and when you are getting service from us, if you get up to 5,000 gallons a month on our current water, then you have to pay this certain fee. If you are building a huge new subdivision and you want water to all those services and not drill wells, then we will, basically the plat comes in and we figure out whether or not we can hook to the main line of one of our current main line that we have, and then once we do that, we figure out the linear footage and the parts of it that are beyond my capabilities, but then they have to pay that in order for us to actually sign off on their platting to get everything
And
completed.
that is the assessment?
That is the assessment.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Crafton?
Thank you, Mayor. And so we're looking at, you're trying to move away from that is what I'm understanding?
No, we are not looking to move away from that. We are looking at restructuring the rate structure. We're looking at whether or not we can cover the capital infrastructure, and then whether or not the current percentage, or I think it's not even percentages, it's actually a dollar amount that we have set aside for the assessment of the linear footage is the correct amount to actually put in the main lines and to actually do the work.
And sorry, we got Eric over there sign languaging to me. Did you say make it bigger is what you're saying? We're looking to,
I'm gonna grab this extra microphone if that's okay. Is that all right, Sarah?
Yeah. That one doesn't.
Is this the scratchy one? No, it's okay. Yeah, so, as Cassie said, when you're developing multiple parcels and you wanna connect, you're gonna have a financial responsibility, and so we're gonna assess that based on property frontage. It's complicated, which is why we shake our head. But that number's old, and we need to make sure that it is forward funding that liability for the city, right? So you're gonna develop 40 acres, you want service, we're gonna assess you and those lots, that upfront charge. And we're hoping, and the goal is that that's enough forward funding that once you're connected, then you're just gonna sell it to someone, and that service fee for every month is then covering the long-term maintenance of that. And so, you know, the longer you wait to look at those fees, the further they are out of reality, and then that delta is a cost that you carry with you, and it's a burden on the rest of the fund. And so what we see is the water fund is doing pretty well. The sewer fund is really struggling. It's far more labor intensive, and so those are those reviews that need to happen. And as we talk about step 1, step 2, step 3, you know, that master plan that we've talked again and again that we're going out to RFP for, that we're getting state support to do, that we have some funding already, that's key to get this going. And to Councilperson Rubio's point, this is definitely dire, and it's in this fiscal year, so I think it should stay.
to follow up, Madam Mayor, so just to make sure I'm understanding this, essentially it will become more costly to hook up large developments to the city infrastructure system because the current rate structure is not sustaining the long-term maintenance of our current infrastructure. So we are trying to catch up for new developments, but again, our existing developments are we're gonna have to figure something else out essentially, but we're just trying to correct things that might not have been corrected in the past.
Right. To have a logical, up-to-date review is really important, and that's what Cassie alluded to. We've partnered with Waterworth that helps us visualize those costs and visualize what changes to the rates do to move the needle, hopefully in a positive, sustainable cash flow, so that we can, because we're gonna have to replace infrastructure already, right? And then we do have a lot of development in the city still, both commercial and residential. And so the question is, what is the right fees to start that process off, and what's the right fees to sustain it into the future?
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, again. Now the in lieu of, doesn't that mean instead of?
Through the mayor, my understanding is the in lieu of is one big payment. We let you pay it over a certain time period. And so I think the way I understand the structure was when the system was built or when it was adopted, it was it was considered a financial burden on the developers to have huge lump sum payments. And they said, can we spread it out? And so what we have is records of what's our normal amortization, like 10 years, 20 years?
30.
It's really long, 30 years. So if you think of, so the other side of the world is a LID or local improvement district, and that you tend to see where the project is large and some of the cost is shared with the property owner. So maybe it's a 10% cost share. City pays 90%, the neighborhood shares 10%, and then those terms are much shorter, usually 10 years, and then it's amortized into their property taxes, and it's a lien actually. So if you had an LAD and you were 4 years into your LAD, and because the neighbors all in a majority said, yeah, we want that, you're paying 1/10 per year, and then you sell your house, your sale pays that whole thing off, and then the person that bought your house has no LAD. The payment in lieu of is this really long amortization schedule to not be so burdensome on a long-term property owner. But the PILAs, payment in lieu of, they stay with the property, right? Or do they have to pay it off if they sell it? Do you have to
Madam
pay?
Mayor.
Okay.
Through the chair, just for what it's worth, code defines PILA means a payment in lieu, PILA means a payment in lieu of assessment, which is a charge levied to allow property owners outside of an assessment area to participate in water system construction costs. And so chapter 1304 governs the whole process, and if you look down, if you're interested, there's service connection charges codified, 1 inch $400. I don't know if those are some of the fees you're referring to, but it kind of talks about this whole PILA process.
Madam Mayor? Okay, it makes sense. I was thinking of payment when you're looking at rate structure payment, like the end user. And that's where I was getting confused. Now it makes much more sense to me. Thank you.
Mr. Graham?
Thank you. So it seems to me that we're looking at two different things here. We're looking at reviewing the utility rate structure and assessment fees to ensure that the water and sewer fees are covered. And then it seems to me there may be a separate question here. Do we need to review the payment in lieu of assessment policy? It seems to me we've got two things in the same goal here, and because they're jumbled together, we're not seeing what we're really trying to do, which is to make sure our rates for water and sewer are covering the cost, and to make sure that the fees, that the assessments for developments and for hookups are adequate to cover those costs. Now, how the city chooses to recover those, whether it's through upfront cash, whether it's through an LID, whether it's through PILA, that's a totally separate question. So I just like to see us get rid of, just say review utility rate structure and fees to ensure, just get rid of payments in lieu of assessment. And if we do need to, if you think we need to review that policy, then let's make that a separate goal. The payment in lieu of assessment, make that a separate goal. Is that?
Madam Mayor,
Ms. Rubio?
I do agree with that, because like we already talked about, with the PILA, it's already in code. So I think getting rid of it makes it clear what the goal is.
Okay, is everybody agreeable? Mr. Crafton?
Thank you, Mayor. Two questions here then. One, so the first part is, the goal of going to the PILA is, it sounds like we want to make it easier for people to hook up to our mainline system instead of doing either community wells or individual wells for new developments. Is that what I'm understanding with the goal of this?
Through
For
the
that
mayor,
portion at least.
I don't know if I can just effectively speak to what the goal is. It definitely is, it's a vehicle to allow we tend to see it in kind of organized, developments, right, subdivisions, so there's, the other way it could work is you say, developer, you install all of the facilities, and when it's done, we'll take that over, and then we'll just charge, user fees from the people that are on the service. So I think that if I could go back in time and see when it was made, and the code may spell it out, I don't have it memorized, but I think this was a way to align with the developers to recoup some of the costs, but also understand that, the city wanted to be in support of those developments from the beginning, financially.
Thank you. And most of the reason why I ask is I've looked at Anchorage whenever I've tried to connect clients to Anchorage sewer system. Hundreds of dollars per foot is ridiculous, the cost. So that's the reason why I ask is, are we looking at trying to make it easier because we want people on our mainline system? Second question is, do we need to review the PILA process? Is that something you guys wanted, and why it was in here?
Through the mayor, this is definitely a carryover. I think reviewing the process is probably, I don't know, I couldn't say if we need to review it. It's kind of like what we were talking about earlier with in-depth review of all the fees. If we were to keep it a goal, I would say we'd want to review the rates within the PILA. I'm not advocating that we change the PILA process, but maybe those rates in the PILA, the linear foot rates, are outdated.
Still,
Mr. Crafton, those fees are in the code.
Was wondering if you wanted a review of them. It was a goal.
Mayor, okay, so, do you like this goal, Eric? I mean, do you want to review the utility rate structure and the
Yeah, I'm supportive of
UIL
that.
this year? You do want to do that, you want that to be a goal?
Yeah,
to
but-
review that?
But I think the way it's been amended right now to remove the PILA, I'm fine with that. I think we look at the rate structure and we remove the PILA as you've kind of agreed to, and I'm totally fine with that.
And through the chair to the council, I suppose, really if it was that out of whack, administration or anybody could sponsor an ordinance to change it. And I have faith the administration would if it was just completely out of whack.
Okay, so everybody's good with 1, 2, and 3?
Madam Mayor. So, yeah, I am good with 1, 2, and 3, but I come back to last year's goals, looking at goal number 19, amend code or policy to allow for LID process to enable the city to support improved street systems and other infrastructure upgrades. Were those other infrastructure upgrades, would that include water and sewer main lines, or what?
Through the mayor, they could, or they could be storm drains, they could be, I think
And
that
was
goal,
this goal accomplished?
I think that this goal, formalizes more use of LIDs. We haven't done it in a long time, and I think it's a useful vehicle to, add amenities, especially like if we look at, just as an example, in the, what's the neighborhood behind King's Chapel? I wanna say Mission Hills, but that's not it. Whispering Woods. In Whispering Woods, there was, a request for speed bumps, you know what I mean? And so we went through basically an LID process where we asked them to show that they had majority of support of the neighbors to add more speed bumps. And so that was a very effective way of getting, we didn't end up, I think the council ended up paying for the speed bumps through general funds, but it was only supported, we had the support of the neighbors through a petition drive, basically. And I think that's a really useful way to get the buy-in on infrastructure and hear from the community that, they want that. So, sorry, I'm off track now, but I would support that goal if that was something that you wanted to introduce again, is to bring that in, to use LEDs more often.
Thank you. Well, as I said, Madam Mayor, I support the 3 that are up there.
Okay. Then we will move on to goal number 4. Madam Clerk.
Thank you. It's infrastructure and refine and improve the capital improvement plan to sustain, preserve, and improve city infrastructure to provide for continued growth. So that's the goal. Ready to move on to initiative number 1. Action item, concentrate efforts on expanding the commercial footprint at Wasilla Municipal Airport. Seek funding to expand and upgrade water and wastewater infrastructure, aiming to attract large-scale commercial development.
Okay, you've got a different outline than we do.
This is in the packet.
Madam Mayor, the number 1 that we have here was because we moved it off of goal 1. That was the City Hall one.
Oh,
That one was originally in goal
Yes.
1, so
You're right.
technically the new 1 is different.
he's exactly right. So my 1 is your 2. You've already vetted number 1 and you moved it.
Okay,
Yes, does that make sense?
Okay.
So really we are on, now we're on,
Number 2.
yeah, number 2, but in your packet, number 1.
okay, got it.
Everybody see it? Everybody on the same page?
If you could go over that again, so I'm looking at page 6 of 18, is that what you're looking at?
Yes, sir.
So we're not talking about 1, we're talking about 2?
2.
Okay, thank you.
Well, it's 2 on, because it was updated, but in your packet, we're talking about 1. But he's looking at the published packet. It's number 1.
You're number 1.
Yep. Stu and I's
Most
number,
people tell me I'm
Stu and
number
I's
2.
number 1, you're number 2. Does everybody know where we're at?
Yep.
All good, okay,
So if you could read the goal again, that would be.
okay. Concentrate efforts on expanding the commercial footprint at Wasilla Municipal Airport. Seek funding to expand and upgrade water and wastewater infrastructure, aiming to attract large-scale commercial development.
I think we've done that.
Through the mayor, yeah, and you'll see, this budget has requests for that with this, I consider this pointing kind of taxiway Kilo and like where the, new Apron E expansion is, there's more development opportunities there. So there's definitely some facility requests coming from into the upcoming CIP that will touch on that goal.
Everyone? Everybody good?
Madam Mayor, so, you said we've already done that, but it's an ongoing process
It's an
that
ongoing.
needs to continue, so we should keep that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, ready to move on?
Number 3.
2, maybe 3, depending
Oh.
on what you're looking at, but the wording is the same. Expand capacity at the sewer treatment plant and bring additional drinking water sources online to meet the growing demands of the city.
Madam Mayor?
Mr. Crafton.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm all for this one. This is a project that I've really been pushing on. But just, I'm gonna kind of wrap in I'm reading is number 5 real quick here. The update the sewer water master plan. So that's probably supposed to be sewer/water master plan. Aren't those essentially the same thing at this point? Because we're updating the master plan, which would essentially tell us to do that. So I'm curious why we have them as 2 separate items at that point, if my question makes sense here.
Are you saying we can't do, yeah, step 1 is 4 or 5, that goal? Then
That's kind of what I would think would be, as much as we know we need to do that, like at the end of the day, we kind of already we already know that that's what's needed, is that we need to expand capacity, and we want to bring on additional drinking water sources for growth. Like, we know we want to do that, but wouldn't the proper way to do it would be to say, hey, we're going to update the master plan, and it's now going to tell us to do that. So I mean, also the other question goes back to, like we did with in goal 3, is that technically something we can do right now? You know, are we in 2026, we are going to be expanding the capacity for it? Merrick's over there shaking his head.
Yeah, through the mayor we are. So unfortunately, what we've been figuring out in all cases is that we know we need to have a smart plan, but we also can't stop. And so, or pause, if you will. And so, I I think it's good to lay them out together. If I were to like rearrange them, I'd have the master plan above expansion, right? We're doing that, every chance we get with, a consultant, we're saying, help us forecast as far as we can and collect that data, so.
Can we move it up? I agree.
I would support moving it higher, yeah, so, and I wonder, I think this is a good opportunity to, before we step away from this, is to say, if we go through and we say all 6 stay or whatever the changes are, if we take a minute and say, we want the master plan to be number 1, that makes a lot of sense to me, and then we have expand capacity as number 2, or whatever the council feels is the order of the priorities, I think that would be a useful exercise to complete tonight.
I like the idea of moving it, at least the master plan should be before it. And I don't wanna jump out of order, cause I had some other comments around that, seeing those two next to each other like that, I'm like, isn't that what the master plan's gonna tell us to do, is to do that?
It's a safe assumption. The question will be, the master plan's gonna have a horizon, and there may be discussions where, a direction is, identified, like this zone in town needs the most attention, or, you know what I mean? So it's not a foregone conclusion that the master plan won't point out some really important underserved area or an Achilles heel of our system that we really need to address, so that we don't have a weakness in serving either water or sewer service, that sort of thing. And then in general, it points to expansion. But so I assume the master plan will point to expansion, but it'll do it logically and say you need to expand over in this direction. So the idea that we need to expand is subset of what the master plan brings forward for where to focus our expansion.
So, follow up on that then, I actually would go back to the fact that I don't feel like it's necessary, because if we go back to goal 2, number 1, goal 2, number 1 is I'm looking at now, 3 and 4, because it says allocate necessary resources and funding to update and implement citywide plans, and then this plan is specifically named. So we've already said we wanna do the plan, and we already wanna do what the plan says. So now we're repeating ourselves actually a second time here.
Madam Mayor. Yeah, so we need number 3 to be number 1 and take out number 2. It needs to be like update the sewer / water master plan. Like we need plans, sorry, S.
Plans, yeah, you're right.
And number 2 needs out of there. Right?
Do you want to just strike through it so they can see it?
Or strike it, yeah. Because it does, it's just like,
You think 2 should be
Councilman.
out of there?
We just said it was an ongoing effort, and we decided to leave
Yeah,
it,
that's
I thought.
ongoing. That should be a goal every
oh,
year.
number 2, number
What's number 4 up there you're saying?
4, I'm sorry, 4, yeah.
Okay, whoa,
I'm sorry,
okay.
I'm sorry, whoa.
Number 2 stays.
Whoa, don't strike 2, don't strike 2. Number
Strike
4,
four.
number 4, sorry, 4.
There you go,
There you go, number 4. Yeah, keep 2, sorry. Don't do that, sorry. Updates.
I still feel like number 3 isn't necessary because it's already here. I get what you're saying, we're being very specific, like this one is super necessary.
Horse before the cart.
Mr. Graham?
Yeah, it's already in there.
So once again, there's 2 things that we're talking about, and the way it's laid out, Eric, you've got the 2 things there. So, yes, we need to update that master plan. And that master plan, like Mr. Crafton said, is gonna tell us to do things. But that master plan may not be ready to go during the 2026 cycle. So I think we need to keep the specificity in there with the 2 things going on. And then once the master plan is updated and approved, then the plan can specify things that we're gonna do. But for 2026, we need to have that achievable goal. And that achievable goal was, in your initial presentation there. The order of them doesn't,
Yeah,
I don't care one way or the other,
Yeah.
it reads a lot better
Right.
by putting, update the plan first, but we still need to have a goal of this year accomplishing, bringing on that additional capacity.
right, I agree. And through the mayor, I guess, to Mr. Crafton's question, if it's mentioned in goal 2, is that satisfy the council to keep moving as a funding opportunity?
We don't need it for. Go ahead.
Go on, Madam Clerk.
Okay, just so everybody's clear, so what we adopted on our first meeting, if you look at that, goal 2, and this is, we've adopted allocate necessary resources and funding to update and implement citywide plans. And then we named it out, comprehensive plan, downtown plan, water, wastewater plan. Is that the sewer plan, Eric? Okay.
Yeah, I'd say they're interchangeable.
And probably add an S on that one. He's just saying it's redundant, and if you guys want it to leave it in there, I don't know that it would hurt, but it's in both places now.
To me, I think it's redundant at that point. And so, sorry, going off of what's on the screen here, so it helps all of us. In my eyes, I think 3 and 4 should be removed essentially, unless what Eric was saying was that we already are planning on spending money in 2026 to expand and, basically it's already coming, but again, I'm going back to the point where I'm like, wait a second, now we're putting the cart before the horse, because I know we've started working on putting a master plan together, and kind of know the master plan's gonna say that, but what if it says do it differently, and then now we've spent this money in this other fashion, and we go, man, we could have allocated that differently and it could have gone better. I mean, that's the point of a master plan, essentially, so I'm going back to removing 4.
But again, if we continue to expand in the city, we can't stop doing what we're doing to wait on the master plan. We got to continue on.
I wouldn't say it's a goal then at that point. That's just meeting the needs of what's necessary for the city. So if some new business wants to come in here and we go, sorry, we can't take you on, or they come in and we say, hold on, we need to expand our facilities first to take you on. Administration comes to the council and says, hey, I need X amount of dollars, we can bring this business in, it's gonna generate this amount of revenue. That's a different conversation than upfront essentially committing dollars now that these are the things we're gonna do. It doesn't mean we can't do it, it just says, hey, let's pump the brakes a little bit here. Let's get a master plan in place before we start going and spending. I mean, it's gonna be a big project. I know it's quite a bit of money, and from what I understand, we are getting actually quite a bit of federal dollars from this, for this project as well.
Through the mayor, I would say we're there. So we have pressure right now to not prevent the development that we know we want to see. And so if we could go back 5 years, we would have already done the master plan, and it didn't get refreshed. And so now we're being pushed by development. And so that's that leap that we need to make. And so we're backfilling with support through our consultants, through the Interconnect project, and through the Richmond Hills project to do that short-term planning that we need to do to know what our system capacity is. And so really what we're talking about for this budget cycle is getting the Herman Road water line system planned and making sure that it works with the larger interconnect project. So we've got that ARPA money that came through the borough that we're under contract with, that we are meeting our goals to expend within the timeline that we've been given. And we're doing the basis that we need for that master plan, which is the mapping and the system quantification. So we know exactly what we have, where it is, and then that will roll into the master plan. But we're not waiting because we know that we're gonna lose a year that we can't get back with those commercial developers that had already been told to wait until Richmond Hills Booster Station was done because of the fire water. So we're in major catch-up mode, but I don't feel uncertain that we're checking our assumptions, we're making good short-term decisions for that development, and then it will roll into the long 20-year horizon that has, you know, those master plans are bold. So they'll show things like a huge service all the way down KGB to Clap or something like that, which today seems crazy to us, but that's what the 20-year-old master plan showed. It showed like a whole nother sewer treatment plant on the other end of town and stuff. So those are really big, and they take the time to have the community involvement and kind of look at work planning for density and zoning, that sort of stuff. And so those are important, and we'll continue to get back on track with the cadence of those refreshes that we need. But we are under the gun for projects that have 2 years out completion, so.
Mr. Graham?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good discussion, everybody. I go back to looking at the goal number 2, and the goal is to prioritize effectiveness and customer reach. It doesn't have anything to do with infrastructure. It just says, allocate the resources to update and implement citywide plans. And it lists, 6, 7, 8 plans. I don't know what it is there. In no particular order: the comprehensive plan, the downtown plan, the water wastewater plan. What we're doing with goal number 4 here is we're saying that this is a priority. We're not reducing or diminishing by any measure, what is goal number 2, sub-goal number 1, or whatever these are called. But we're not diminishing that by any measure, but what we are doing is we're saying that this year we are gonna update that city water sewer master, the water and sewer master plans. And as part of that, we're gonna make sure that those additional water sources come online, because they will come online this year, under the current, under what we're currently planning to do. So we should just make sure that we put it here to say that, come hell or high water, that needs to happen. So I would not be in favor of deleting either one of those. Thank you.
Ms. Rubio.
Madam Mayor, I'm confused. You just said, not used to, Eric had just said that we're allocating in goal number 2. So yes, it's a goal, but a master plan, according to Eric, does take time, right, with everything. So you see it physical, or you see it tangible in FY 2026 as a master plan?
Right, so the funding request, so what you will see in 2026 is the funding request for that, and it may just be the fact that, like, for instance, we've been working with DEC for extra monies. It may just be the acceptance of DEC monies and the acceptance of a contract to do it. So that's the action that you would see in 26, is the approval to spend and the approval to hire a consultant to get us going in that. As like the comp plan is kicking off now, that's an 18-month process. So I'm not saying that the master plan would be done, June 30th, 2026, but you will have approved the process to get it going through your normal approval avenues.
Madam Mayor, thank you, Eric. So it says update the sewer/water master plans. So if it's not gonna be completed, it's not gonna be updated.
It's a
We
reference.
can allocate for it, but a goal wouldn't be to update it because it's not gonna be completed.
Through
And
the
so
mayor, I would-
again, a goal needs to be tangible. And you're saying in goal 3 that we are gonna have an updated sewer/water plan, master plans, and we're not gonna have that. It's not even tangible.
We could change the verbiage and initiate if that.
Needs to say it.
Madam Mayor. And we do have a master plan.
We do.
It needs updated.
Yeah.
So this is a goal to update the master plan. So I think this is a good goal. We're gonna update the master plan. We already have one, it just needs updated.
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Crafton?
if I could, to Eric here, so You're saying in 2026 is when we're gonna start this process? Because if I recall, I'd asked for $250,000 to start this year.
Right. Right, so the goal is the goal is not to wait till July 1st, right? The goal is to get moving. And so I guess the question is, have we met the goal when it starts, or have we met the goal when it's done?
I think that's also what Ms. Rubio's asking.
Exactly, so
too.
that's a good discussion. Have we met the goal when it starts or when it's done?
I see it both ways. To me, it's kind of a semantic thing at that point, whether, again, some of these are ongoing goals, gosh, at that point, we need to put the words concentrate efforts, to me, it doesn't matter either way, but I'm just curious here, because now I'm like, wait a second, I thought we had put money in this 6 months ago, and so now you're like, oh, we're not gonna start this for another at least 6 months. I'm like, wait, Eric.
No, there's no artificial waiting for it. There's
Right.
just getting through the RFP
Yeah.
procurement
So,
process.
so to me, again, the words update make a little bit more sense, because or updating it. We are not at that point allocating funding. We've already actually allocated the funding. Essentially, we just haven't officially allocated the funding for it.
Mr. Graham?
Thank you. So I would agree with Ms. Rubio here, and it's really a matter of semantics here. So perhaps what we should be saying is continue the process of updating sewer water master plans. I mean, does that meet what people are arguing about here?
I said I was fine with whatever.
Okay.
Updating.
Okay, everybody's in agreement with that? Number 4, are you in agreement with striking that or keeping it in?
I'd like to keep it in.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to keep it in because the goal is to do some expansion this year.
Right. Okay. Okay. Number 5, Madam Clerk. Or my number 5.
LID, continue to improve local roads by investing $1 million until all roads are paved, enhancing connectivity and accessibility within the community. Improve and repair existing roads by investing $500,000 as a benchmark for annual maintenance.
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Crafton?
Thank you, Mayor. So I remember the latter half of this was something I had asked about last year. So basically everything after the word improve. I was curious from Eric, if we could, Mayor, where are we at with completing this goal? If I recall, the summer of 2026 is when we should have all of our local city-owned roads paved, if that's correct. If we stay on track, that is.
Yes, through the mayor. So that is our goal too. There's going to be a couple strange outliers that have more to do with incomplete development, if you will. So, but we're on goal. We're on track to meet the goal of every city-owned, currently maintained gravel road will be in this next budget request to finalize that paving. And like I said, there are a few outliers where maybe we haven't accepted maintenance because that property developer needs to do a few things. So if you were to drive within the city, you may still find 1 or 2 dirt roads because of that. But for the regular, like, it's a city street and it's just never been paved, we're on track to meet that goal with this next funding round.
Okay.
So, given that comment, and what we've been talking about for the last several years by investing $1 million a year, the project list that was brought forward last year that we were working on, it doesn't look to me like there's $1 million worth of work left. I mean, should we be changing that to $750,000 in paving and $750,000 in maintenance? I mean, or
Well, if we, through the mayor, if we consider the benchmarks, I think we can have that discussion. You'll see a cost estimate before it goes out to bid so that we have an understanding of what the what the engineer's estimate is, so we can allocate appropriately. There are, escalations that we haven't seen yet from the last 6 months, because the last bid is almost a year old now. So I would hesitate to say that we should reduce it at this point, as long as we just keep those numbers as benchmarks. And then you'll see the engineer's estimate before it goes out to bid, so we can tweak it at that point if that's something that the council wants to do.
Madam Clerk.
Mr. Crafton?
Thank you, Mayor. I think the best thing to do would be to change it at that point. I don't think we really need the dollar amount. I would just think we say, continue to pave all local roads until all roads are paved. I think we should just keep it short and simple, because the dollar amount's a little relevant. I mean, essentially the way it's putting in here is, hey, we need to spend $1 million every time we're at no more than $1 million. I mean, depending on how you look at it. But I would just say, let's do it, because we're gonna complete it in 2026. Let's keep it simple. And then we'd almost wanna knock everything from improve into its own category there at that point, because I have some comments around that one as well, but it's almost a different conversation at that point. I can't remember why they got lumped together anyways. Again, it's been a year.
Madam Mayor?
Ms. Villar?
Yeah, I think I'm for removing the $1 million in the price, because that's something we deal with at budget. That's when we'll say, you know what, we're gonna allocate $1 million to the roads. That's budget time, not really goals time.
Through the mayor, I think that makes a lot of sense, and you're in the 4th or 5th year of that initiative, so I think there's a lot more confidence in what's been done, and I think that goal probably grew from, being upfront about the expected cost, right, so that it could be completed in a certain amount of time, and not saying, well, we'll get it done soon, but we don't throw any money at it, that sort of thing. So I think it makes sense that we're close to finishing, so being that specific probably isn't necessary.
Mr. Crafton?
Thank you, Mayor. I was just gonna jump on basically what Eric said, and I think Nikki, again, originally it was, yeah, we're gonna spend $1 million. I think it was in a, Mr. Graham, you've probably been around here for a while. You probably remember why it was put in for $1 million, but I get it. It's saying, hey, we care this much, that our goal is to try and hit spending $1 million on it. I'd like to see the word from improve right where you're at. I feel like that could be knocked down to its own goal, just because it's a complete, we're talking about paving unpaved roads, and then this conversation is saying, hey, we've done that. Let's go back and start fixing some of these neighborhoods or roads that we've put off for a little bit of time, because, you've got paved roads, this person doesn't. Let's get their road paved, and then we can have a conversation about fixing your road at that point.
Are you gonna leave the, 500,000 in there on the, improve and repair?
Go on.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, I don't think we do, because again, that can come back to us at budget, and that can even come forth if a road needs fixed. You can bring it to us, Eric. And so I don't think we need to cap anything right there. Take numbers out, again, it's a goal.
Right.
Madam Mayor, just to add, the reason why I put that in there was just so we had a target number, like, hey, we wanna start putting aside X amount of dollars. And I think part of the conversation went with Eric, we said, hey, what would it take to start fixing some of these roads? And then also, if we didn't have to fix any roads that year, we're gonna continue to essentially set aside a road repair fund. Was kind of the idea I had behind it whenever we originally passed this one, because I know there are some roads out there that are, it's not time to just slap a little pavement like they did on Church. Church was I'm glad they did it, that we're getting by. But I mean, some of these roads, it's time where it's like, we're gonna rip this entire thing up. We're also gonna look at probably expanding them, because some of them, when they were originally built, were not built to what our standards should be today. I know, Nikki, you have that problem right now. So, sorry, I was trying to also separate the conversation there. So I feel like we should stick talking about 5 before we jump to 6.
Mr. Graham?
So I think the $500,000 you know, it just talks about it being a benchmark. It's not a limitation. It's just saying, you know, if we're not looking at $500,000 worth of road maintenance projects, then we're not looking hard enough. So I think having that number there is useful.
Mr. Crafton?
Just to add what Mr. Graham's saying, again, too, I think if maybe we only had $300,000 in repairs that year, the goal would be to take another 200,000, set it aside and say, hey, because we don't know, if we have a really bad year of rain, really bad year of snow, cold, roads heave, we might have a year where we have to spend more than 500,000. And again, I like to forward fund all of this, so the best we can do is continue to set aside money for specific types of projects like this. That's my idea behind it.
Okay, we need a consensus. Keep it.
I say keep it.
Either way,
Ms. Rubio?
Keep it.
Say keep it.
I said keep it.
Okay, then it stays in. Okay, the next one.
Next, I have continue expanding the train depot and intermodal facility with partners Alaska Railroad and Alaska DOT, and facilitate a connector trolley to the downtown core. And could we spell out those acronyms?
Alaska Railroad.
I think, is that ARR, or not, Eric, yep.
Not everybody knows that.
That's the Railroad Corporation.
Mm-hmm. Everybody good with it?
Trolley.
Mr. Graham?
I just have some questions there. It says, continue expanding the train depot and intermodal facility. When we talk about expanding, are we talking about enhancing? I mean, we have a very large piece of property down there that we're calling the train depot and intermodal facility. I don't necessarily like the term expanding there. And then also we look at a totally separate goal, which is to facilitate a connector trolley to the downtown core. I don't see that those are necessarily related. I see that as two separate things, you know, two separate things that could be accomplished. And if one of them is not accomplished, did we fail on that goal? Or, you know, if we're gonna throw the connector trolley on there, then, you know, I would like to see it as a separate item, you know, item 8, item 9, whatever it's gonna be there. But the expanding the train depot and intermodal facility, I understand, you know, that we're looking at a new building there, you know, that kind of mirrors the train depot, you know, which would then be our visitor center or an out of the weather place for people to stay. But I don't know, the expanding just, I don't know, hits me wrong. I'm not sure exactly what that means there, so. I mean, does it mean acquire new land? Does it?
Want to improve, continue to improve?
Continue
develop.
improvements?
And don't we?
Through the mayor, develop maybe instead of expand, develop?
Yeah, that, I would be much more comfortable with that.
Yeah, I think that, yeah, change develop to expand, yeah. Mhm.
Madam Mayor, just a question. Don't we have a plan? I mean,
Sort of, through the mayor. And that's why if this remains a goal, that plan needs to be refreshed. We need to we need to go through that process again where the vision is agreed upon and it's, you know, it was bitten off in chunks, a little bit of funding here and there, and then the building got moved, but then the railroad wasn't gonna use it, and then we got them to change their mind, and now they're using it, and then we have to have amenities. We need a parking lot. So that plan was used to get where we are, but it's definitely time to have a holistic look again, look what the development really should be now that we're using it, and maybe, you know, the perspective of what an intermodal facility has changed, because of course, there's not been a commuter train in Anchorage, and so you know, it's old enough that maybe the reality of its initial use never came to fruition, and that's not what the council wants and the city wants anymore. One thing that I just looked at, Deputy Administrator, the trolley, would you be amenable to moving that one part down into economic development under goal
Yes.
5?
Yes,
It was tiny because of the location, but it's more economic development than,
yes.
so. Yeah.
And I took enough crap about that trolley today to,
You wanted to trolley to Palmer.
I want a trolley, I'm telling you.
I'm curious to hear about the rest of that. Madam Mayor. So over to Eric here. Would it be better to say that we need a plan to develop the plan to do the, what do we call it, the development of the train depot and intermodal facility? Since it sounds like our plan is out of date, I mean, create a plan, improve the plan. I don't know what the term we'd want to say is, because we technically already have one, but it sounds like, kind of like the whole wastewater thing, where it's like, we're updating it. Because based on what I'm reading, we're gonna do what we already have existing, essentially. So I would feel like we should be creating a plan first. I mean, I assume that's not, I mean, we might even be able to finish that this year is the thing.
What about reevaluate the plan?
There, I like that. That's something like that. Reevaluate the plan to develop and then leave it there. So remove the word continue, reevaluate the plan. And I don't know what we call the plan, if there's a name to it.
Yeah, through the mayor, it was a,
Phase 1, 2, 3.
it was a planning level
Yeah,
plan.
It was.
It
To have enough information out there for the borough to supply the land and, you know, get some buy-in on it. But there's lots of involved parties, the railroad, the borough, the municipality, all of that. So I think it makes complete sense to reevaluate the plan to develop the intermodal. Yeah.
I like that better.
Okay, everybody good with that? Okay, and the last one.
Last one, invest $1,250,000 as a benchmark or minimum in city-funded infrastructure improvements each fiscal year, dependent on funding availability.
Mr. Gray,
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think we should just delete this altogether. When this number was put in there several years ago, we were in a completely different, we had a completely different fiscal picture for the city. Our reserves were very minimal, to put it mildly. And this was just to help point the council in the direction that, you know, no matter what, we need to find some money to make some improvements. So we're no longer in that fiscal situation, and I just don't see that this is needed any longer.
Madam Mayor.
Madam Mayor, now I can see maybe taking out the investment funds part, but maybe this should be an ongoing goal of infrastructure improvements each fiscal year. I mean,
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Crafton.
Thank you. I see where Mr. Graham is going. I remember a conversation around putting the 1.25 in there because we started the conversation about City Hall. That was I remember this was a little bit of part of that conversation where we weren't binding the money to City Hall, but we also understood that, hey, there's a potential we're gonna either buy, build something with another City Hall or even this building. I remember the 1.25 million was put in there. I know, if I recall, the goal preceded that though, but then we decided to put a little bit more of a, hey, we really need to work on this. To what Ms. Villalock was saying, I feel like it would be best to just remove it, because at the end of the day, this is essentially the CIP plan, or the capital improvement program or projects. That is essentially what this is every year, at the end of the year, we are given a document that says these are where we need to spend large amounts of dollars. And like Mr. Graham said, we're not necessarily hurting for cash right now. I mean, you could argue putting this aside so we always have money, but I really think we've done such a wonderful job as a council doing that over the years. I think this is, I would say actually what we've done is we've completed this goal many times over.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I would agree with Councilman Graham. I think we can get rid of it because we can always bring it back, like we said, in the budget, and administration can bring things forward. I just think that it doesn't need to be a goal in this infrastructure category.
Ms. Cottle?
I agree, I think we should strike it. I don't think it needs to be in there at this point.
Okay. Then we have a consensus to strike it. So, goal number 5.
Okay, goal number 5, under the header Economic Development, is to seek innovative strategic opportunities through partnership between the city, other local governments, and the private sector to improve business opportunities. So that's the goal, and our first initiative under that goal is to implement top goals approved in the 2023 Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy, SEDS, to foster a strong and diverse economic base in Wasilla.
Mr. Graham?
I would agree with the clerk. I don't know what those goals are, so it might be we need a number 1, A, B, and C to say what those top goals are.
Crystal?
Save the trolley for last.
Yeah.
So one is to continue to improve and expand our infrastructure, because every business we talk to wants a flushing toilet. So that's important. 2 is to attract different economies of scale, like tourism. We haven't been very intentional about that. And the 3rd one is community connection, where we look at the libraries and the sports center and bring additional users and different ways to use those facilities. So those are the top 3 priorities that we have in the SEDS, or the top 3 goals.
Is this what we're saying here, the top 3 goals?
Yep, to
It just says
implement
top
them.
goals.
To implement
three
them. I mean, a plan isn't no good if we don't start.
Oh, but I'm
We're
just
gonna
asking,
implement it.
this says implement the top goals.
Top 3
5,
goals.
top 3,
Yeah, top 3 goals. We could add 3 in there.
Yeah.
There's 3 goals in our SEDS.
we already decided we're gonna implement the first goal that you talked about, which was infrastructure.
Yeah.
Mr. Crafton?
Madam Mayor, I like the idea of what Mr. Graham said of actually listing them out. Because, I mean, think about it, this is our document, but this is also the public's document. So if I was a member of the public and came and picked this up and said, oh, great, I read a document that tells me to read another document, it's I feel like the 3 goals could be there. I mean, at the end of the day, it's at the end of the world. It's not, no, but I'd like to see them, and I mean, that'd be my thought, is like Mr. Graham said, just listing them out as like A, B, and C on there or something would be really nice for people.
Would you like us to research that document?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be here now. I think it's one of those when we go to
I mean,
pass
add
it.
it,
we'll
research
see
the
it, yeah.
document, and
Yeah, I
then.
think that'd be fine if the rest of the council's okay with that as well. Whatever. Yeah, just list the 3 under and bring it back to us when we go to pass it.
Find them.
It doesn't say goal 1, 2, 3.
No, I mean, I'm just doing a cursory.
Crystal knows what they are, but.
I'll give those, I can send those to Jamie.
And when you say implement the top 3 goals, you talked about, coming up with a tourism plan. And so you're saying in FY 2026, you're gonna have a plan that you brought to the city council that says,
Correct.
this is our tourism plan, this is our,
Our 12-month plan of implementing those goals.
is through the chair, it's here, if you guys wanna add it. Goal A was improve one, I guess, number one, improve infrastructure to support economic resilience.
If you put them as A, B, C.
B is diversify the local economy.
Can you? Add to your workload, sorry. It'll be easier to read.
Yeah.
So when you say diversify the local economy, are you saying in 2026, we're gonna add some new sort of industrial base to our economy? Or are we talking about growing the economy by having more, diversifying and growing are two different things in my eyes. Diversifying means, well, now we have a data center that we didn't have before, a different, something completely different. Now we have, some sort of different medical facility that we didn't have before, whereas, getting a Whataburger doesn't diversify the economy in my eyes. It just, it just grows it. But
Right, so in our plan, it's very specific on how we do that, but one of the projects that we're working on is doing an inventory of what types of businesses we have right now, and then those businesses and those types of industries that we do want to attract. Because the reality is you don't want to go attract a data center if you don't have water. And so we'll have a good inventory, and then from our SEDS, one of the things that they really encouraged us to do is there's these small micro sectors like tech that you can partner with the high school and maybe do some pilot projects with that. And so it's really taking the diversification of the local economy in that plan and start putting some real programs together to see how we can do that.
So I'd say the goal here isn't necessarily to diversify the local economy, it's to identify opportunities to diversify.
good. Yeah,
Is that, would that be?
I think that's probably what,
But if you take them out of the adopted plan.
I mean,
In the top three goals.
Right. I don't think diversifying the local economy is an achievable goal unless we've already come out and said, we need to attract, HP to come in here and do something like that.
So maybe it doesn't say implement 3 top goals, maybe we need to change that. You know what I mean?
Microphone's working.
Eric,
Through the mayor, so the SEDS kind of touches on exactly what you're saying. There's objectives to get to those goals. So like Councilmember Rubio said, maybe we change it to some sort of action statement, make progress on objectives. I mean, like move on the objectives within the 3 goals, because it is a multi-year process. It's one bite at a time. The goals will not be met this fiscal year, so maybe we need to modify it slightly to talk about making strategic movements in the objectives of the goals or something like that. And that's kind of what Crystal alluded to, is coming back and saying, these are what we're gonna tackle within this larger framework.
Yeah, make progress.
So looking at, have we met any of those goals?
so obviously the first one is to improve infrastructure, and that's really the conversation that, do we even, how much of our infrastructure right now can support what we currently have? And if we have a hotel come in, how much more water infrastructure are we gonna need? And so we have moved the needle on that, because we've already started working on that.
Eric,
Through the mayor, yeah, so under that goal A, improve infrastructure to support economic resiliency, the SEDS has 5 objectives. And so objective 1 is upgrade water, wastewater, and stormwater infrastructure. So anything that we've completed in this last year has touched on that. Develop a regional transportation infrastructure. Working in MPO puts us in touch with the bus system. So, we are making movements in all these objectives. The other one I would point out is increase housing development within the city limits. And on the planning side, there has been some really important relationships and projects started because of the tone change within the permitting side for new housing development. So there are definitely movements in almost all of the objectives that I can think of off the top of my head, so. Just in goal 1A.
Trying to figure out. 'Cause we haven't,
Continue to implement the top 3 goals.
'cause we haven't
Yeah.
completed any of them. Completed any of them.
Continuously.
I would say, continue to implement the top 3 goals. So as we move towards that, the diversifying the local economy is the tougher one.
Yeah.
But I mean, if we're working towards that by going to conferences, by participating in different things where we're contacting different industries and different pieces of different industries, then we're working towards that, and that would count as accomplishing that goal, I think. So that would be an achievable goal at that point, in my eyes.
I like it.
And Madam Clerk, could you talk about improved community connections? What does the SED say there? Or maybe Eric's.
I may defer to Eric, I already
Sure.
shut down my.
Yeah, so goal C is improve community connections to promote resident well-being. 3 objectives: build an attractive Main Street district. That's number 1. Number 2, increase year-round events. And number 3, improve upon existing recreational assets.
Continue to implement, I don't think that's right.
How about focus? Continue to focus? So you're not going everywhere, but just continue to focus on the 3 goals and objectives in the SEDS.
Something. Just trying to figure it out in my head.
Or invest.
I think we might be arguing semantics a little
invest.
bit.
Yeah, or Jamie,
But
that's good.
Basically, these aren't tying us to one thing, but it says, hey, these things are important to us, and we are continuously going to work on these 3 things. It also involves a plethora of other things as well. I mean, if that's the case, then we might as well take the entire SEDS document goals and start typing it into here. But I think the best thing we can do is like what we've done here is just say, hey, these are the top 3 goals. We're gonna work on these 3 things. It doesn't necessarily mean one thing, but I mean, just reading off C and what some of those other things are, it kind of opens the door for some other things that we could potentially work on.
We're gonna invest, I like that, continue to invest, cause it's not a focus, it's not, invest in it, like we're driven that way.
I think that's a much better way to say
Mr.
it.
Graham?
So, back to 1C there, community connections, is that government speak? I mean, if I were a 5th grader reading this, would I have any idea what the hell you're talking about, or should we say?
That was the
recreational?
that was a stakeholder, term that they came up with.
Yeah, but I mean, what Eric talked about, if you could go over those 3 again, but I mean, it was
Yeah.
opportunities for, not related to business, but related to quality of life.
That's right, yeah, that's correct, yeah. So the SEDS isn't wholly,
Commerce.
Right.
It's not wholly like raise shareholders' value in the businesses, right? So
Right.
it's what you have is a document that's created by planners, so connectivity is extremely important to them too. So the goal they have, so goal C, like we have the title, they elaborate a little bit more and they say foster a community that has continuous opportunities for resident connections and engagement with the natural environment. And so that's where you see the parks, that's where you see the yearly or the year-round events. That's the community side that a healthy neighborhood wants. And like Crystal said, that came out of these many stakeholder meetings.
Right, and I would say, pursue quality of life improvements, and you mentioned something about the outdoors being included that or something.
Yeah, and that engagement with the natural environment.
That engage with the natural environment. I mean, I just see community connections up there, and that means absolutely nothing to me.
Yeah, that's a good point. We wanna have a document that's understandable.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
if we are referencing it, you guys, we are continue to invest in these 3 goals that are approved by the 2023 by the SEDS. We can't alter it.
Then we're not.
We're invested.
Right. And to me, like what Parks and Rec's done in the park for Christmas, to me, that is a community connection. The menorah that was down in the park, that's a community connection. The mayor's picnic, the 4th of July parade, all of that's community.
Hey, Madam Mayor, I see Mr. Graham's going and Ms. Rubio here is, again, we want people to be able to read the document and understand it without having to go look up things. But also what Ms. Rubio is saying is, if we're saying we're gonna implement the top 3 goals of this document, then A, B, and C should be those 3 goals. And if we change any of it, then it's not technically those 3 goals.
That's right.
Unless we wanna argue verbiage. I think of community connections as we are connecting different parts of the community to help the resident well-being. That is community connections. Could a 5th grader understand it? You're right, Mr. Graham, there's some times that we're gonna do our best. But in one of these cases, I mean, unless we'd have to change the number 1 to change C at this point. I'm with you, but I think it does need to stay. But when Eric read off more, it's like, oh, okay, this does make sense. And aside from putting the entire document in there, I think this works very well.
Okay, everybody in agreement? Okay, moving on. Number 2,
Okay,
Jamie.
number 2, build relationships that support continued funding from federal, state, local, and private partnerships to expand city programs, fostering collaboration, and securing additional resources.
Madam Mayor?
Mr. Crafton.
I just want to say I like this. I mean, this basically says we're continuing with our, blanking on what we call him now, Chris, lobbyist, as well as, to me, this also falls in line with the council going to AML. Because this is what, one of the biggest things that we do at AML is essentially this goal. So I think this is very important and very well said. It's not too specific, but it is specific enough that one could understand what it could be utilized for and justifies things we're doing.
Eric?
Through the mayor too, so this is number 25 from last year, so this is, you have seen this before, so.
Okay. All right, number 3.
Okay, number 3, new number 3, facilitate a connector trolley to the downtown core.
Okay, we got to buy a trolley, hire a driver, stop the
Partner with
train.
people that have trolleys.
Yeah, I know, we already know what
Expand out
trolleys
here.
are.
Madam Mayor, is this something that we do plan on actually doing in that fiscal year?
It's something that we continue to hear from the businesses that say in the summertime especially, if they could just get people off the Parks Highway to come and see their stores, it gets really slow walking traffic in the summertime. And so it might be a pilot project to see, but who knows, maybe they'll come from Anchorage just to ride the trolley out here. And I think there's a lot to see here in the city that we've never really been intentional about showing off our city. People find us, or they stop and get a cheeseburger, but
I think this would be a good project too with, maybe the high school writing up some stuff or what they're doing in some of our sister cities. But it's,
Madam Mayor, so the trolley, are you talking about a trolley on little train tracks?
No,
Or
Trolley
just on
that
wheels?
yeah,
Just
wheels.
it's on wheels.
Okay.
It could be a bus, but
Okay.
we'll name it a
Like
trolley.
that. I got our driver.
Hey, he's had practice on the train. All right, got a job there, Stu.
So, you know, this was pulled out of initiative or objective or whatever we're calling it, that was dealing with the train stop there. So Alaska Railroad said a couple of years ago, before we moved the depot, they dropped 1,600 people. They serviced 1,600 people here in the city of Wasilla. So if we're talking about moving potentially 1,600 people, and all 1,600 of those people either got on a bus, you know, a tour bus, or got in somebody's car, you know, and got picked up by somebody and went somewhere. So there wasn't a real need for transportation there. You know, what I hear you talking about is the need to promote the downtown area. And I'm kind of, I agree with you, but I'm not sure that's a function of the city to do that. I think if there's a need for that, I think the private sector is gonna step in. Somebody's gonna have a 15-passenger van and say, hey, here's my little schedule. I'm gonna run around, you know, 8 hours a day, and, you know, we'll meet up at the clock tower or whatever, and then we'll go, you know, to the historical district, you know, we'll go to the museum, we'll go to Idita Park, we'll go, you know, wherever they wanna go. I just don't, I see this being in the hypothetical stages at this point and not an achievable goal.
Yeah, and really, I think the genesis of this is when we had a conversation with the railroad about only getting 1,600 people dropped off. What would it take? Because really, we should size the infrastructure to the end user. Well, who is our end user? Is it the 1,600 independents? Or is it the people coming off the cruise ship in Whittier that doesn't want to stop in Anchorage that would like to stop here if we had the hotels? I don't know. But it's something that the partner at the depot said, you know, we have packages and we have reasons why we stop in certain cities and certain reasons why we get them off the train for a night or a day. Give us a reason, and they like that idea, and so we kind of just piloted a little bit, but it is a goal, and it's kind of a big goal, but.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I don't necessarily dislike the idea. I see where we're going with it. I see where Mr. Graham's correct as well. You know, that it does sound like it's a function of the private sector, not a role of the government. My concern with this is it says, hey, we're gonna go out, we're gonna buy a trolley and we're gonna do this. One, I'm concerned how much it would cost. Two, what if it doesn't work? You know, government, not saying the city of Wasilla, but government is known to continue to, for lack of a better term, beat a dead horse. And I don't want that to happen with a project like this. To me, what I would prefer to see is a plan that we can implement and see. It sound, if I recall this, there was comments from the public that they wanted it. So next we would say, great, you want this, this is what we're gonna do. What do you think about this idea? So what I would probably say, if we're going to consider this at all, is I would like to see us make a plan and say to the public, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna get a trolley. This is where it's gonna go, and see what the interest would be there. Even throw it out to the railroad and say, hey, this is what we're doing. Do you think you'd have some interest in getting more people here? But to outright say, we're gonna buy this and we're gonna do this, to me is a little bit of the council signing a blank check, is how I'm feeling on it. But also at the end of the day, I'm like, it's a private sector thing to do, so.
When are you gonna start your new business, Ian?
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Graham's the one that can
No,
drive it.
I agree, like, it's one of those things, like, love the idea of the trolley going around downtown. I don't know if I'd wanna do it in the winter. But it's the fact that, yes, this is something that somebody in the private should be doing,
Yeah.
not our city, because the city is not in business to run a business.
Right. Well, and I think that's why it says
So-
facilitate a connector trolley to that.
I think if we can find someone that loves to do it,
Yeah.
let them do it on their own. The city doesn't need to spend time, resources, energy on something that we're gonna in the end have to run and fund and take on.
It's that partnership again, a partnership with maybe a company that wants to expand out here, but
Well, they'll have to figure that out.
Yeah.
Without our dollar. So I don't know. I, like I said, love the idea of the trolley, but I don't think for the city to be able to operate it and to be able to do that, I think somebody else should take that upon.
Madam Mayor, may I through the chair to our city planner, is that something that would be in a comp plan? You know, as you go through a comp plan? You know, that type of idea?
Well, if I could speak for the planner, I think there'd be some tentacles that touch. As the port engineer down Juneau, I worked with 1.4 million passengers that would come onto the city facilities, and the cities are in a strange relationship because they build the facilities extremely expensive, and you're trying to have the infrastructure so that business can happen, but you need to pay for it. And where are you paying for it? And do you have user fees and taxes? And so it is a natural position for the city to find itself in. Buying a trolley and running the business, I do not recommend the city do, I agree. And so I think we pulled this out of an infrastructure plan to really talk about how we want to make our train station more useful. We want to see visitors get off the train and come into the city. And so I wonder if it would make sense, I like to facilitate, wonder if we step back from the trolley and we say facilitate tourism at the train station in whatever form it is that the private industry wants, but we aren't an impediment and we're out there selling ourselves as an opportunity. Come look at what we have. What would you do here? We want you here. We're not going to kill you with fees, or we're not going to say buses are a big deal, but you know, we're not going to have $1,000 bus permits to use it. You know, or the first person says, "I don't even know if this is going to work. I can't pay that up front." There's ways businesses can be killed by the city acting too aggressively, and so I'm hearing maybe don't be so specific on the trolley, but facilitate, you know, facilitate something. Something about the train station being, you know, tourism, expanding tourism at the train station or something like that.
Madam Mayor, go back to 1. Isn't that in our SEDS?
Yeah.
Okay, we don't need number 3.
Mr. Graham?
It is in the SEDS, and I'm gonna wander off here a little bit into the weeds so that people understand where I'm coming from. So, twice, I was the president of the Greater Palmer Chamber of Commerce, or the Palmer, I think it's just the Palmer Chamber of Commerce, which runs which ran the visitor center downtown and ran the museum back in those days, which tells you how old I am. But the visitor center worked with the tour operators, okay? And there's a lot of independent tour operators, but they're all busloads. You know, nobody comes up with 6 people, you know, they come up with a busload of people. And they work with the cruise lines, you know, I mean, and I've worked with the cruise lines. I mean, you go down to Whittier, you know, and get 1,500 people on the train, you get another 2,000 people on the buses, and get another 500 independent travelers. You know, you empty the ship, and then, you know, at the end of the day, you bring them another 3,000 passengers to head out the other way. So the way that it worked well in Palmer was to have these investigative meetings. And it didn't start by the city saying, hey, how do we get people to come to the visitor center? How do we do this? As I recall, the city of Palmer went to a consultant to a tourism consultant and said, hey, what have we got here that people want to see, and what is our market? You know, what, could we expect to see 5,000 people a year? Can we expect to see 10,000 people a year? Why do the buses stop here? And I can tell you, the Princess buses, I mean, they're on their way, they're on their way up to, you know, the Glen Allen area up there. Well, they stop in Palmer because there's a restroom there that 50 people can get off the bus and use after they've had their cup of coffee and bran muffin in Anchorage at the hotel. So they stop there, the visitor center captures them for 45 minutes or so. You know, maybe they do a little shopping downtown, maybe they don't, and then they move on. But I mean, they're not really tourists, they're just taking advantage of facilities, and the city, you know, isn't collecting anything off of that, or is collecting a very minor amount of sales tax off of what they buy there. So it's not something that's gonna cover itself, and I don't think it's something that the city would really wanna dig into. I would think if we're gonna look at this, well, let's allocate $30,000 to have a tourism consultant come up and say, hey, what's our market here? You know, what opportunities do we have here? I know for me, working for Holland America Princess on the train, oftentimes we would get bused, the employees would get bused up to Denali, you know, so we would stop in Wasilla at Fred Meyer's to get lunch or breakfast or whatever was going on, but we wouldn't do anything, you know. I mean, is there an opportunity there maybe to turn that into a 2-hour stop instead of a 1-hour stop? What would we do there? I just don't think we are the people to be looking into that. If we want to look into this, let's hire somebody that knows what the heck they're talking about and have them tell us, you know, that's a really bad idea, or, you know, hey, here's the opportunities.
Madam Mayor. I think Mr. Graham's on the right track there. I think if we really wanted to encourage tourism here, I think that's a really good idea. Because then again, it's either going to give us a thumbs up that we need to continue moving forward there, or it's going to tell us like, hey, honestly, this is not the right time to be doing this. Though I don't know if it necessarily needs to be on here, because I think that falls, if you want to scroll back up there just a touch, I think that falls under number 2, or under 1B, excuse me, at that point. So I think it's there, and I think at this point, if that's the case, I think the council should just say, hey, we'd like to see that come up in the budget this year.
Through the mayor.
Everybody agree? Eric?
Yeah, just chime in. 1B, objective 3, is become a visitor and recreational hub. So, you're right, it exists in that framework there, and so we could, if we bring that budget option forward, we can just point to that and say, we talked about that under this objective.
I think it's a budget question.
So I think we can strike 3 because it's under 1.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Is there a motion to exit committee of the whole?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I had one more question before we exit committee of the whole.
Just one.
This is over to Eric here. So I looked down at my notes and realized that I had a question for goal 4 section. I can't remember who I had the conversation with around it, but I know that there has been some times that we didn't know whether it be water or sewer pipe, where they were at in the city. I think you and I have actually briefly talked about this as well. Do we have a plan to track that down, or is the master plan part of that?
So the question is, are we tracking down where our utilities are?
Correct.
Yeah, we do. So we have filing cabinets full of paper as-bills. We're digitizing those so that we have them in a easier to digest way. There'll always be, it's not gonna be perfect, right? Because history gets a little fuzzy in some areas, but we're actively moving right now so that we have that data at our fingertips, so. We don't need, and that will come into play with the master plan, of course, because what that allows the consultant to do is know what we're working with, and if we're gonna add a major thing on the end of a line that's too small, then we need to know that up front. So yeah, that's kind of the stage 0, is be able to tell who helps us with the master plan, what we got.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, is there a motion to exit committee of the whole?
Madam Mayor, I move to exit committee of the whole.
Is there a second?
Rubio seconds.
It has been moved by Councilmember Cottle and seconded by Councilmember Rubio to exit committee of the whole. Is there objection? Hearing no objection, we are out of committee of the whole. We are on to audience comments. There's no one in the audience to comment. We'll close it, bring it back to the dais. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just remind everybody, you saw the email from me, your APOC public official financial disclosure statements due by March 15th. File those online with APOC. And then once you filed them, either bring me a copy or just email and let me know you filed it. I'll request a copy from APOC. We will see you all here January 27th, next regular meeting. Thank you, and great job tonight.
Councilmember Cottle.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good discussions, good conversation tonight. I think we made some pretty good headway. I'm happy with the results, and that's it.
Thank you. Councilmember Crafton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to say thank you to the council. I really enjoyed our conversation today. Madam Mayor, may I ask a question of the directors while we got them here tonight? I'm not sure who this one's going to go to, if it's Eric or Scott in the back there. I was curious, trying to hide, the lights that we did down at the Wonderland Park this year, was that a new display or a new thing that we did this year? Because I feel like I don't remember there being that many lights in one centralized location.
There wasn't.
Yeah, well, we did upgrade the light display at the park, yeah, absolutely. And we had, the staff had been building all kinds of new things, and we had the new buildings that we put out there that they serve cocoa out of and stuff. So, yeah, there was a massive upgrading in the lights. You're talking about kind of closer to the Honor Garden, is that?
Correct, yes.
Yeah.
Sorry. if
Yeah,
that was
that was a major initiative this summer and this fall to get that built.
I just want to say how awesome that was.
The mayor.
job.
I took my kids out there, and and it was funny because we're like, we're gonna get out there when it's above freezing, and it was like 10 degrees when we finally did get out there. And as cold as it was absolutely wonderful. Do you handle it, or is that more of a recreational aspect at this point?
No, that's parks,
Part of
yeah.
Parks.
So the mayor's been working with the Parks Department to kind of build out her vision.
Yep.
And so some of the highlights, those lights take a lot of electrical cords. People steal our electrical cords. So we bury them and freeze them in the ground so they can't steal them. And so the mayor had an idea of this kind of village area where entities could have hot chocolate and these different things. And they serve double duty to hide the spider boxes, is what we call them, so that the power can be distributed safely. Snoopy's house is another way to hide the spider boxes. And then what do we call it? Santa's
Workshop.
Santa's Workshop.
Yeah.
That's where they're all going. So now that's the storage for all of those displays. So they are loaded up kind of like a pod if you're moving. And the whole thing is taken by heavy equipment back to the shop, and it's stored in there. So it's a package deal now that the parks crew built, so.
I just want to say how awesome that was. Like I said, I took my kids out to it. They had an absolute blast, and one of the things I always wanted was to see more stuff that got me out of my house, even in the dead of winter. I mean, it was cold as can be, and we still took the time to go out there. It was really cool. If you didn't get to go see it, you should. I'd love to have a conversation a little bit more about that, but not right now. I just wanted to curious. So thank you guys for that.
Just for your extra knowledge, there'll be more next year. And our guys and girls make all of those. So, Councilmember Graham.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, directors, for your participation here. I know there was a lot of questions, and obviously you folks know exactly what you're talking about, because we got a lot done in not a whole lot of time. 2.5 hours, that's pretty good. So I also wanted to comment about our our one person in the audience today. Scott came in. I didn't know him. I introduced myself to him before the meeting, and he came in prepared to talk about a concern, and he didn't have some very specific things to do because he doesn't have the knowledge to be specific. But I mean, he's expressed to us his concern, and now it's up to us to try and figure out the specifics and figure out if there is a way to work on that and things that we can work on. So even though it didn't, even though his concern didn't end up, per se in our goals and objectives here, the continued development of the sewage treatment plant there, is gonna affect his property and the other folks along there. So it's great to hear from the audience. I can understand why he left after an hour and a half, but it's great to have those people here, and we should certainly encourage folks to go there as well. Also, for those of you that know Eddie Ezell, the former director of the Mat-Su Food Bank, he went through open heart surgery last week. He has not yet been released from Providence Hospital, but he is expected to fully recover. So those of you that have opportunity to bump into his wife and friends, please pass along your best wishes. And I'm certainly hopeful everything's going to be great with Eddie there. He's been a valuable part of this community for many years, and I know I appreciate everything that he's done for the city, and I'm sure those of you that know Eddie realize what a great person he is to have as a resident of our city. So please pass on your well wishes to his family and friends there as well. And I hope everybody had a wonderful holiday, wonderful New Year. I was actually in Anchorage on New Year's Eve, and I didn't see the fireworks out here, but I did see the fireworks in Anchorage. I've seen the fireworks out here for 20 some odd years, and I can guarantee you our fireworks were way the hell better than they put on in Anchorage. So great job to the city, and great job to the council for making sure that these community connections move forward like that. So, thank you.
Councilmember Velock.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, staff and administration, for your participation and your help tonight. Yes, and the lights are awesome at Wonderland Park. Were we going to get some displays at Nunley Park? Remember you mentioned that. Nunley? I was thinking Stu had brought that up a year or two ago.
I had, and I asked for an update on that and never received one.
Oh, okay, yeah. Because we love Nunley Park too. And that's it, thank you.
Councilmember Rubio.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Great discussion tonight. Talking about the lights, I did see the lights. I was at the lighting ceremony of the tree and listened to the choir. Love that. Looking back on my own childhood, it used to be at Wasilla Lake fireworks and everything. With the new lights that we've had Parks and Rec spend time on, I think more residents, maybe if we could exercise the thought and the idea of bringing it back to Wasilla Lake for fireworks and the lighting of the tree and the displays, because more people will see it driving by. It's exposed more, but I feel like it would be a bigger reach to the community than just having it at the park off the grid, so to speak. And we do have plenty of parking, including the train depot if they wanted to use the crosswalk to go across. And then on that note, what else was I gonna say? Thought about it. Oh, the meeting with the wastewater. I did reach out to Scott after that, and I believe he is coming on Monday to discuss that just a little bit. There was a lot. I was the only council member there, and that meeting left me with so many questions that I would like the idea of exploring more into it. And that even projected me to call Scott, because he was very knowledgeable at the meeting. And Eric, can vouch for that, them going back and forth, and a longtime resident of Wasilla and that problem. So I think that more education on the council part of it would be enlightening and help us maybe budget, help us even push forward more. I know it's initially now one of our goals for the wastewater. But yeah, I just think that more knowledge to the council because a lot of us couldn't be there, would be great, so maybe we can push forward to having somebody come through and discuss that and bring that light to.
Should I add it as a future agenda item, but I need for discussion, but 2 council members, or does the whole council support it, or?
Yeah, I think that would be awesome, I think.
Yeah, through the mayor, I'd be happy to get our consultants to come and present on that. It's due, it's overdue, yeah.
So we'll, through the chair to the council, I'll work directly with Mr. Shaw, and then as soon as the council, I don't know what their schedules are, we'll hit it for the next available agenda.
Yep.
That would be awesome, thank you.
Okay, thank you guys. Appreciate your time. And it was a very good discussion, so we will see you Monday night. With that, we are adjourned at 8:30.